Hey everybody, what is up? It's currently a little bit after 12:30 a.m. and I just finished watching the season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian with Grogu. We had so much fun. Tonight's episode, chapter 17, was called The Apostate. It opened up with a scene of the armor in the middle of a ceremony welcoming a new Mandalorian into the clan, only to be interrupted by a sea beast. It was nuts. Before I go any further, let me just warn you guys. I was planning on doing this spoiler free. I don't think there is a way for me to talk about this episode without going into spoilers. So there's your warning from here on out, and also the last 30 seconds, spoilers. I loved this episode. I think we are off to a very, very strong start. I took some notes because it's after midnight and I'm tired, but I wanted to make sure to go over some bullet points. This episode answered a lot of my questions that I had. First being, was it going to start with a previously on that covered the events of the Book of Boba Fett that reunited Grogu and Din and explained how he got his new ship? And it did not. And I think that's very interesting because I'm wondering, for people who just watch Mandalorian Season 1, 2, and then go directly into 3, are they going to be lost and confused about how they got back together, how we got a new ship? I'm very curious about that. So if you're someone who has not seen the Book of Boba Fett and you're just going from Season 2 of The Mandalorian into Season 3, I would like to hear from you in the comments if you found that jarring and could have used a refresher of what happened in the Book of Boba Fett, the events that you're missing out on. I just thought that was very interesting they did not include that. Another answer that I got tonight was, are they going to address where Cara Dune is, her absence from the show? And they did. There was one line between Din and, let me get this correct because everybody else in the episode botched it. They called him Magistrate Karga. It is actually High Magistrate Karga, who, by the way, has these two little droids that follow him around and carry the train of his cape. They are so cute. But yeah, they address where she is. She's been hired by basically the Republic, the New Republic, to go on some missions. So they explain her absence from the show. I was curious about that, if they were going to address it or just sidestep it altogether. I will say, I do miss the Razor Crest, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I loved seeing him zip around in the N1 Starfighter. Oh man, especially that scene towards the very end where he's navigating the asteroid field and fighting the pirates. That, so good. It makes up for the lack of the Razor Crest, even though the Razor Crest was one of my favorite Star Wars ships, and I have sitting over there my Lego Razor Crest. Whew, love it so much. So I also wanted to make sure, oh boy, that I talked about the very brief return of one of my favorite droids, IG-11. He came back for maybe 30 seconds, but I loved the way they brought him back. There was a horror element to it where he was crawling on the floor, only half his body. I thought that was great. Could have done without the one-liner, as David pointed out, where Din says, now that's using your head, when they crush his head with the bust. Didn't really feel that line. But one of my favorite things in this episode, and it's very brief, is when Din is napping and Grogu's hanging out in the little pod and they're traveling through hyperspace and you see the silhouettes of the Purgles. You guys, to see Purgles in live action, I know it's just the silhouette and you don't really get a clear picture of them. Oh man, I hope we get to see them, a clearer picture of them coming up in this season. And then this episode ends with Mando and Grogu going to go visit my girl, Bo-Katan, in her castle. The architecture for her castle, the design of it was so sleek, so badass. The way she's sitting on that throne, I can already tell you, the way that in the Book of Boba Fett, where he's sitting on that throne, that scene that's at the very end of The Mandalorian when they tease the Book of Boba Fett is coming, and they sold hot toys of that, they sold action figures of that, there were Hallmark ornaments of that. you're going to get those same things, but with Bo-Katan, the way she's lounging in that, just like a boss, lounging in that throne. And I cannot wait to see her this season. Bo-Katan is one of my favorite Star Wars characters. She's a badass. I have at work, I have a helmet of hers that I got at Disneyland, lights up, makes noises. So cool. So happy to see her in the first episode. So overall, I would say The Mandalorian Season 3 is off to a very strong start. I'm happy I got some answers to some questions I had, and I cannot wait to see where it goes next. There's one more character that I really want to see more of. He was the pirate captain. I believe his name was Gorian Shard. And he reminded me of Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. Just the way he looked with like the kelp, the seaweed stuff growing on his face, and the walk he had. And then, of course, you guys, I cannot end this without mentioning the Azelians. Babu Frick, come on. How great was it to see that species working on the IG-11 droid? Which, by the way, I cannot wait till they fix him up and he's in up and running condition. So anyways, that's my quick thoughts on the Season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian. Let me know what you guys think about this, and maybe I'll do another one for next weekend. And until then, hope you guys have a good night. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to go get some sleep now. Have a good night.